worked with over 10,000 people over the last 25 years, one of the things that I've realized is most people don't have a strategy problem, they have a state problem. And today we're going to talk about those five states, what I call the five tiers of transformation. So when I look at this, there are so many people that are 7 to 8 figure founders scaling their business. And what I see is that they try to build a brand and they get to a sticking point or a bottleneck. But what most of them don't realize is that they are the bottleneck, their capacity. So let me explain this. So most people, when it comes to human development, they often look at personal growth. But personal growth itself isn't very quantifiable. It's very subjective. And so when you look at your spreadsheets and your return on investment and all these sort of things from a business point of view, there's data that reflects back to you if there is a level of growth for the business. The problem is we don't do that with ourselves. And this is where capacity comes in. See, what I've seen is it's not about the strategy, it's about the state of being of the person, because the buck stops with you. The business can scale, but at what cost? You can go through your business and get to the point where you are managing everything. But it's not about managing everything, it's about holding everything. So think of it like this. Managing everything is like spinning 7 plates. You've heard that expression before. You constantly have to run from one to the next, to constantly keep spinning each one so that they don't lose momentum. But holding everything is raising your physical and psychological capacity to hold more. And from that place, you are able to do more, be more, and then have more. But most people that are scaling their businesses don't do it that way. They just go through sheer effort and strategy. But here is the definition of the difference. It's about the state at which you are building from. And once you build your capacity, you're able to scale with reserves. And those reserves are cultivating your relationship with yourself and cultivating your relationship with your family. And so today, what I'm going to show you is the 5 tiers as you see on this PowerPoint slide. I'm going to walk through each one so you can actually identify where you are honestly. Don't lie to yourself here, because if you lie to yourself, the mirror only ever reflects what it sees. Okay, so let's go through these. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll understand where you are on this tier system and what the next steps are for you. At the end of this video, there will be a link to a quiz. It takes you 90 seconds. Think about this, 90 seconds for the rest of your life. It takes you 90 seconds to correctly identify through that quiz. It will auto-calculate and let you know where you are on the tier systems. Okay, so now let's look at tier 1. So I've just got my cursor here. So yes, I'm using visual imagery to explain this because we are humans. We understand things through visuals. And so what you see here is somebody who's typically with bad posture. Now, why that really matters is because of something, first of all, called red light, green light posture. And what that relates to is shown in psychology. When people are depressed, they drop their shoulders, they drop their head. Now, from a functional point of view, your head, I want you to just stay with me here. The average head weighs about 10 pounds. As soon as you move your head forward in this typical pronated posture because you're not confident or have lack of self-esteem or you're burnt out and you're tired, as soon as your head moves 1 inch forward from its optimal resting position, it actually doubles the relative load, not the actual load. It's still 10 pounds, but it feels heavier. And that is a posture you have to hold every single day. That basically siphons energy from the body. Why? Because the best posture is the one that uses the least amount of energy. So, to give you another example, if I was holding a water bottle, but I held it close to my chest, let's say this water bottle weighed 200 ounces. It's easier for me to hold it quite close to my chest versus me holding it out at arm's length. It's still 200 ounces, but it feels heavier because of where it is relative to my body. That's the same example as with the head dropping down. And so this is typical of tier 1 people. They're in such a physiological depression psychologically, it mirrors itself into your body. And so they drop their head down. And as you see the shoulders come in, now when the shoulders come in and you drop your head, you depress your sternum. And when you depress your sternum, the weight of the head and the shoulders compresses the rib cage. Once that happens, it actually reduces the tidal volume or the amount of oxygen you get into your body. You need oxygen to function, you need oxygen to think. Just think about people that die from oxygen deprivation. They're starving oxygen from the brain. So this is one of the things that I see typically in tier one. People that have bad posture, drop their head down, aren't fully confident in themselves, or burn out, so their posture sags. And now the second part, as you see with this, is the weight. Now, I'm not saying weight for aesthetics and for body beautiful. It's not about that. But like I said, the best posture is the one that uses the least amount of energy. So if you have bad posture and have excess weight in your body isn't as functional. Remember, this is about function, not body beautiful. So there's something called MENS, which is a minimal electrical neuromuscular stimulation. It basically means the body always seeks the path of least resistance. So when you have excess weight in the body, there's more resistance and more effort from the body. So we're trying to build a posture that is functional so that we can become more focused and have a greater capacity to do work. So typically, when we go beyond just the posture now, we look at the mindset, most founders I find are actually in tier one. Whether you're operating at 7 to 8 figures, typically you are in tier one because you use effort and strategy to get through the day. You're so burnt out, you don't have reserves. You are so in the mindset of pushing that you are often in what I call the beta brainwave state, which is constantly reactive state, which is why it says survival and reactivity. And if you're a 7 to 8 figure founder watching this, you may think, well, I'm not in survival because I'm financially independent. That's not what I mean by survival. Survival is also those people who are constantly on the go. They're trying to keep their business going because they know the buck stops with them. If they take 3 months holiday, the business collapses. That's a state of survival. But also, they are so addicted to the exotoxin, the endorphins that constantly they are on the go. That is a survival mentality, constant need to do. So it's not just about financial independence, it's actually about the mindset that makes you want to keep pushing every single day. And so this is what I see from these 7 to 8 figure founders constantly in the survival reactive state, unable to unwind. This is tier one. They can't sleep properly because they're always on the go in their mind. They cannot exit beta, which is the doing state, and enter alpha, which is the receptive recovery state. They are constantly on the go. They live off stimulants. They are burnt out. They are addicted to their highs. They can't take time off work. They can't be fully present with their family. They can't be fully present with their children. Now, if that sounds like you, you're most likely in tier one. But like I said, take the quiz at the end of this to really get a definite answer as to where you lie on those tiers. This tier one represents 90% of the Western world. And it also mirrors what we're seeing in society when most people are tired, burnt out, overwhelmed, ADHD profiles. This is typical of tier one is ADHD because there's no form of regulation. So when we look at regulation, what we're looking at is the nervous system. So the mind's primary vehicle of expression is indeed the nervous system. When the nervous system is settled and regulated in its optimal state, that reflects to the mind that we are safe. And once you are safe, your body's heart rate actually slows down, which is mirrored and entrained into the body. When your heart rate slows, your respiratory rate mirrors that. When your respiratory rate slows, your digestive processes mirror that. All of that affects your psychology and your biology. But the opposite is true. It can also elevate everything so that you feel constantly wired. That is ADHD. From my perspective, ADHD is really about regulation or, more likely, dysregulation of the nervous system. This is all tier one. Okay, so hopefully you understand that you may be seeing yourself in that and thinking, okay, what do I need to do to change that? And so we'll address some of that near the end of this video. The next one is tier two. And so tier two people have the same problems as tier one, but the difference is they're now at a stage of awareness. They understand that things need to change. And so one of the things they typically go for is the easiest access point, which is health. And when I say health, what I'm thinking more about with this expression is physical training. They go to the gym, they do a yoga class, they may do Tai Chi, but most of the time they go into the gym to get fit because they think, well, if I'm fitter, I'll be able to handle more. And yes, to a degree, but only if you have reserves. And what I find is there are most people that are in tier two that are fit but sick people because they're devoting a lot of their energy to physicality without actually qualifying the nervous system for that. And they're typically doing the wrong type of thing. They hire a personal trainer who just beasts them and takes the last reserves of energy that they have into training. But they're in tier two because they're responsible. That's the key here. They have a level of responsibility. And typically, when you start training, one of the things you do start to do is be more selective when it comes to food. And so that's what shifts you into tier two responsibility and your nutrition. But you're still in a dysregulation, but you're more aware. And so that and the fact that your posture is better actually give you a return on some of that energy, which you can now use to rest and recover and to be more aligned. So that's tier two. Now, going back to tier one for a second, there is actually a financial connection to tier one. So most people in tier one, their capacity of their nervous system is the ability to hold about 30,000 pounds in terms of effort and productivity in their nervous system. Tier two is typically around 50 to 100,000 pounds in the nervous system based on the effort. Now, you may be a 7 to 8 figure founder and think, well, I've got so much leverage in my business that I actually only need to work 10 hours a week. And that's different. But in terms of the energetic capacity to think, because you have to be fit and healthy to think well, therefore it can actually affect you in terms of the capacity of how much wealth you can hold from a cognitive point of view. So this is tier two. Tier three, as you see, there's a massive shift here, which is why I've illustrated this with almost like a Zen type of posture. Remember, the word Zen means the easiest path. And this relates to the body. The easiest path for the body, MENS, minimal electrical neuromuscular stimulation, the path of least resistance. And so the path of least resistance is a regulated nervous system. So typically in tier three, you are more likely operating in alpha more often, which again is rest and recovery. At this stage, you're able to work for a few hours, be highly productive, and then take about 10 to 15 minutes break to relax the nervous system to create what we call an alpha reset or a quantum reset to before you go back into work. Your heart rate is a lot slower at this time. Typically here, your heart rate is about 60 to 65 beats per minute, which means you are more regulated and more likely in alpha. At this point, you're spending more time doing Tai Chi, Qigong, breath work, as well as training and stretching. And because your nervous system is more regulated, you are more harmonious, you think clearer, you have a greater capacity for demand, and so therefore stress has less impact on you. Because stress hits everyone, but it's your ability to handle stress. And your ability to handle stress is based on the capacity of the nervous system, which regulates your state. So in tier three, the capacity for the nervous system is to hold between 100,000 to 250,000 pounds based on effort and capacity to receive information and becoming more intuitive to guide the business through intuition and to stabilize and structure the business through systems. So marketing, sales, finance team, operations, all of those things are built properly or correctly through a regulated nervous system with a higher level of capacity and intuition to then drive the systems through. So that's tier three. In case you have this question, tier one, the heart rate is typically around 85. Tier two, the heart rate is typically between 75 and 80. And now moving into tier four, this person that demonstrates tier four is abundant financially, but also vital. They've scaled their business in an energetic way to the point where they are highly intuitive They're able to have the vision for the business, feel it through alignment with the body, getting a full body yes, and then build a system. So I call this vision, feel, and infrastructure, always in that order. The vision, forward thinking, always seeing, always downloading. Feeling, it must be in alignment, represents 80% of correct building through a soul aligned way of doing things so that you're able to be more, do more, and have more. And then 20% is systems and structures when it's done correctly. At tier 4, your nervous system can hold a capacity for 1,000 pounds in terms of cognitive, physiological capacity. So therefore, running a business that you're able to generate £1 million a year doesn't burn you out because you have the physical capacity to hold that effort. And so typically this person will be doing breath work, will be going to retreats every 3 months to just totally reset their nervous system. They will have a mentor or a guide, a spiritual teacher or a guru of some type that is a mentor or an architect that supports them. They only eat organic food. They do Tai Chi, they do stretching, they train, they go to the gym. They have time for their family and friends. They spend no more than 20 hours a week working because they understand that it's about me first, the business is secondary and can only be expressed once I fully have met myself. That's tier 4. And their heart rate is typically between 55 to 62. And then we get to tier 5, the avatar state. The avatar state is what I call calibrated. At this level, you are fully aligned, soul aligned leader, able to be fully regulated with a resting heart rate of about 45 to 50. You speak slow. You are able to operate multiple businesses, but at the same time have so much downtime for yourself. You put yourself first. You're always doing all the things I mentioned in tier 4. You go on retreats all the time because you understand the more you develop yourself, the more intuition you receive, the slower you breathe, all increase the output of the company. And you are at a point where every single person that's in your inner circle is in harmony with you. You all relate to each other. You no longer see people as business partners. They are a part of your tribe, and you build your business from that standpoint. You're fully present with your family. You're able to be in the moment, and you are inspirational to other people because you are the example. You are showing somebody that you can be everything at all times because you are everything to yourself first. And when you build from that place, you are inspiring people. You don't fear people into following you. They are inspired to follow you because your vibration, your frequency, your capacity are awe-inspiring. People want to be around you. You attract tremendous amount of opportunities into your life because as soon as you're in the room, you magnetize the room because you're vital. That's the type of person that you really want to be inspired to be. Someone who is from the inside out, pouring so much light out into the world that people want to just be in your presence. And I've seen this. So this is the 5 tiers. And, just personally, I've seen this with a lot of my clients that because they slow down, they actually accelerate their businesses. I always use this example of a propeller. If you ever see a propeller, like on a helicopter, it spins so fast, it appears to be moving in slow motion. That itself is powerful because when you're able to do that, when you're able to fully align, people just want to do business with you. Just imagine that. Just walk into a room. You don't have to convince people because it's an energy that you give off that people say, I don't know what you're selling, but I'm buying. Imagine that. And that's what I've seen. One of my clients recently who, runs 3 or 4 companies, he was just saying to me, the more he slows down, the faster opportunities come to him. Because again, he is so effervescent that people want to be around him. They just want to do business with him. They don't know honestly, they don't know what he does. They just want to work with him because they like that energy, the sense of ease, the ability to slow everything down rather than the old mindset of push hard and navigate, push hard and dictate, push hard and force your way through. That system's over. We're now in the soul aligned era. And I hope that makes sense to you and you really get that. Like I said, I'd encourage you to take the test at the end of this and just click the link at the bottom to take that test and just honestly see where you are in regards to your nervous system. Because once you realize where you are, honestly, that will convince you to actually slow down and actually regulate your nervous system because everything starts from that. It's always you first and your business second. When you do things that way, you regulate. And like I said, just to summarize and remind you again, do you want to be someone that's managing everything or do you want to be someone who's holding everything? Really think about that. And you may be successful right now, but at what cost? The cost is always to yourself. The cost is always to your family. What's important for you? Do you want to be the richest person in the graveyard or do you want to actually value the moments that you live? Hopefully that makes sense to you. If you want to know more, take that quiz. And if you're ready to actually step into your power and to actually build a business through energetics and through diagnostics and metrics and soul aligned, then there's also a link for you to click for you to then book a discovery call with me and we can see if we can support each other in that process through my energetic alchemy proximity program. All right, guys, until next time, stay legendary. Peace.